Chosen one, I want you to notice something. There is a feeling you carry, one you probably don't say out loud, not because you are ashamed of it, but because it is too certain to be casual, too large to be explained. The quiet, unshakable sense that you were not built for small, that the financial reality of your life right now does not match what you were designed to hold. You are not imagining it. And here is what almost no one will tell you. The ones chosen to carry the greatest wealth are almost never the first to arrive. They are the ones who remained in the wilderness longest, not because they were forgotten, but because what they were being prepared to carry required a level of formation that ordinary timelines could not produce. What you are experiencing right now, the waiting, the pressure, the delay that feels like it contradicts everything you feel on the inside, is not evidence that you were wrong about yourself. It is evidence that you are being built. And the signs of that building? They are already there, already visible if you know how to read them. That is exactly what I want to show you today. Not as a promise, as a recognition. Before we go further, I want to say this quickly. If you can stay with this message until the end, what you will receive is not just encouragement. You will understand why your wait has been this long, what is actually happening inside your brain that has been working against you, how to recognize the 7 specific signs that confirm you are on the threshold, and what to do right now, in this exact season, to align yourself with what is already moving toward you. Stay until the end. What I share in the final section may be the most important thing you hear today. Now let me begin with the first sign, and it is one that almost everyone misreads. At some point in your life, you started keeping track. Maybe not consciously, but quietly, in that part of the mind that notices things without announcing them. You started watching people around you, friends, colleagues, sometimes people younger than you, and you noticed them arriving at things. A new business, a new home, a level of financial stability that felt, from where you stood, like something you had been working toward for a very long time. And in those moments, you felt something complicated, not just envy, something underneath the envy. A question, a very specific, very painful question that most people never say out loud. Why not me? I want to answer that question today, not with comfort, not with vague reassurances, with truth that will reframe everything you thought your delay meant. Here is what I want you to understand. Financial delay and financial destiny are not opposites. In almost every case I have ever studied, across history, across cultures, across every wisdom tradition that has documented the patterns of breakthrough, the people who went on to build the most durable, generational, lasting wealth were not the first to arrive. They were almost always the last. Not because they were less capable, not because they were less favored, but because what they were being asked to carry required something that the fast timeline simply does not produce. Let me show you what I mean. There is a truth in nature that we walk past every day without stopping to understand it. A tree that will grow 30 meters tall spends more of its early life underground than above it. The root system being built in the dark, in the cold, in the invisible, that system is exactly proportional to the height the tree will eventually reach. A tree that grows fast and easy is usually the one that falls first when the storm comes. You have been in root season, not failure season, not forgotten season, root season. And here is the first sign I want you to hold today. You have been waiting longer than the people around you, and you are still here. You did not walk away. You did not collapse into bitterness. You kept showing up, kept believing, kept moving, even when the evidence said you should stop. That is not ordinary. That is not something everyone does. The wilderness does not just delay people, it selects them. And the ones who remain faithful under extended pressure, who do not harden into cynicism or dissolve into despair, those are the ones who have been quietly, invisibly passing an exam that the palace requires. Joseph did not become the architect of Egypt's abundance before the pit. He became it because of the pit. The 13 years between the moment he received his calling and the moment he walked into the palace were not wasted years. They were the years that built the man the palace required. Not just the talent, the character, the patience, the ability to steward something enormous without being destroyed by it. David was anointed as a teenager. He did not step onto the throne for years after that. He went back to the fields. He fought bears and lions alone, in the dark, where no one was watching. And when the kingdom finally arrived, it arrived for a man who had been formed in ways that could not have been shortcut. I am not telling you this to make the wait more comfortable. I am telling you because you deserve to understand what your wait actually means. The size of the delay often reflects the size of what is coming. And you, if something in this message is landing, you are not in a holding pattern. You are in a formation process, and that process is almost complete. But here is something I need to tell you now, and it is connected to the second sign. Because the first sign is about time. The second sign is about what is happening inside you, specifically inside your brain, that you may not have realized has been working against you. And when I explain this, I think it will make the pieces fall into place in a way that very little else has. Here is the second sign. You can feel the vision clearly, but you struggle to execute consistently. You know what you are supposed to be building. You can see it, sometimes with startling clarity. And then something happens. A day goes by, a week. The clarity fades. The action that seemed obvious somehow doesn't happen. And you wonder if something is wrong with your willpower, your discipline, your faith. Nothing is wrong with your faith. But something is happening in your brain that most people do not know about, and once you understand it, I think you will never look at your struggle the same way again. There is a state that the brain can operate in. Neuroscientists call it the gamma state. It is the brain's highest frequency, the state associated with clarity, pattern recognition, intuition, and what researchers describe as the eureka condition. When your brain is in this state, decisions feel natural. You see connections that other people miss. Opportunities that would normally look like risk begin to look like what they actually are. Open doors. Children naturally live in this state. This is why learning is effortless for them, why they recognize magic without being taught to, why they dream without apologizing for it. But somewhere around the age of 7, something begins to change. Researchers at institutions like Harvard and MIT have documented this pattern, a progressive suppression of the brain's highest performance state, driven by the pressure of modern education, chronic stress, and a culture that rewards the survival brain over the flourishing brain. They call it the decline effect. By adulthood, most people are operating almost entirely from a threat processing state. The brain that was designed to build and create and recognize opportunity has been slowly, systematically trained into a brain that scans for danger, manages scarcity, and treats abundance as a risk. And here is what that means for you. The vision you carry in your spirit is real, but your brain has been running on a frequency that cannot yet process it into action, not because you lack willpower, because the biological instrument that translates vision into execution has been suppressed. This is why the gap exists not between you and other people, but between what you feel on the inside and what is appearing on the outside. Now, I want to share something here, not as a commercial, as something I believe is relevant to exactly what we are talking about. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years studying why certain people seem to operate from a completely different cognitive state, one where decisions are clear, where synchronicities become visible, where what others call luck begins to multiply. What he developed came out of research drawing from institutions including MIT, Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, and Berkeley. What he created is a 7-minute audio track. It uses a technology called brain entrainment, a method for using specific sound frequencies to guide the brain into the gamma state directly. Not through meditation, which requires months of practice to produce measurable results. Not through expensive biofeedback equipment, which runs around $7,000 for a home setup and $300 per session at a clinic. You put on headphones, you sit still, you listen for 7 minutes. The technology does the work. Over 18,000 people have used it. The price he set for it is $39, available through a link I have placed in the description and the pinned comment below this video. The standard price was $49, but for people watching this specific video, he made it available at $39. One thing I want to say clearly, there are imitation versions circulating online that use the same name, but do not contain the actual brain entrainment technology. They are just audio files with no therapeutic mechanism. The only version with the genuine technology, the 4 bonus materials, and the full money-back guarantee is through the link I have placed below. Please do not search for it on Amazon, Spotify, or anywhere else. This is not a guaranteed path to wealth, no tool is. But if what I have just described, the gap between vision and execution, the sense that your brain is working against you, if that resonated, it may be worth 7 minutes to find out what you feel on the other side. For now, back to the signs. Because the third sign, the one I want to show you in the second half of this message, is the one that I think will matter most. It is about everything you have lost. And I want to tell you something about those losses that will change how you understand your entire story. Stay with me. Chosen one, welcome back to the second part of this message. I want to begin here with something most people never say out loud about the losses in their lives. Not the small ones, the large ones, the businesses that didn't make it, the financial decisions that cost you more than money, the partnerships that dissolved. The years when it felt like everything you tried to build kept falling apart. Most people carry those losses as evidence that something is wrong with them, evidence that they aimed too high, or that the universe simply does not have what they hoped it did. I want to offer you a different way to understand those losses today, a way that does not minimize the pain they caused because that pain was real, but a way that changes what those losses actually mean inside your story. Here is the third sign. Everything that left your life was clearing space. Not randomly, not carelessly, precisely. Think about what happens when a builder prepares a site for a major structure. The first thing that has to happen is not construction. The first thing that has to happen is clearing. Old foundations that cannot support the new weight have to come down. Old structures that would interfere with the new design have to be removed. The site has to be emptied before it can be filled with what it was always meant to hold. Your losses were not subtractions from your story. They were excavations. The failed business that seemed to take years from you, it also stripped away an identity that was too small for where you are going. The relationship that ended and left you questioning everything, it also removed a dynamic that would not have been able to survive the level of elevation that is coming. The income source that disappeared, the financial flaw that gave way, those things were not compatible with the version of you that is currently being formed. And I know that is not an easy thing to hear, because when you are in the middle of losing something, the clarity about why it had to go is almost never available to you. You just feel the loss. You just feel the hole where the thing used to be. But look back now. Look at the specific things that left your life in the years before you arrived here, and ask yourself honestly, is there anything that left, anything that ended, dissolved, or fell apart, that you can clearly see did not belong in the future you are being built for? I think you already know the answer. Joseph lost his coat. He lost his freedom. He lost his proximity to the family that had defined his entire identity. Everything that had been his was stripped away in what must have felt like a complete dismantling. And none of it, not one single loss, was an accident. Every piece that was taken was a piece that could not have made it through the gate of what was coming next. You have been going through the same process. And the fact that you are still standing after what has been taken, that you have not allowed those losses to close you, to harden you, to convince you that you were wrong about yourself, that is not incidental. That is the fourth sign. The fourth sign is this: you are still open. After everything, after the losses, the delays, the seasons that made no sense, you are still here, still searching, still willing to believe that something is true about you that the circumstances have not yet confirmed. That kind of openness after that kind of pressure is not just admirable, it is rare, and it is one of the most consistent characteristics of the people who go on to build something that lasts. But I want to go one layer deeper, because there is something underneath the openness that I think is important to name. Beneath the openness, for a lot of people watching this, there is a question, a quiet, uncomfortable, sometimes shameful question that lives right below the surface of the faith. Do I actually deserve this? Not as an abstract philosophical question, as a lived, felt thing. A doubt that shows up in the quiet moments and whispers that maybe you have been wrong about yourself this whole time. That maybe the delay is not preparation. Maybe it is just the universe telling you, in the gentlest possible way, that this level of wealth was never actually yours. I want to speak directly to that doubt now. It is the fifth sign. The presence of that doubt, that specific doubt, the one that questions your worthiness rather than your capability, is one of the most consistent markers I know of that someone is standing at the threshold, not in the middle of their breakthrough season. Here is why. The kind of wealth we are talking about, the kind that outlasts you, that changes the trajectory of people beyond you, requires a person who does not receive it from a place of arrogance, who does not take it for granted, who does not assume it is owed to them. The right posture for receiving something enormous is not certainty without question. It is faithfulness that includes the question, trust that does not require the doubt to disappear first. The fact that you are still asking whether you are worthy while still showing up, still working, still believing, is not weakness. That is exactly the posture of someone who will be able to hold what is coming without being destroyed by it. And here is what I want you to understand about the losses, the delays, the doubt, all of it together. You have been doing something for a very long time that most people do not know how to do. You have been turning lead into gold. Every loss that you processed without becoming bitter, that was alchemy. Every failure you sat with, learned from, and carried forward into a new attempt without collapsing, that was alchemy. Every moment you chose to hold on to the vision when the evidence said it was foolish, that was alchemy too. You have been an alchemist long before you had anything to show for it, and the gold that gets made in the hidden parts of a person's journey is the only kind that stays. Now, I want to bring this to the center, because everything I have shared, the delay, the frequency, the losses, the doubt, it all converges into something. A single shift in understanding that I believe will change how you walk through every day that comes after this one. Here is what I want you to receive as the deepest truth of this message. You were never chasing wealth. Wealth was being built toward you. The model that most of the world operates from says that wealth is pursued, that you have to want it enough, work hard enough, attract it through the right thoughts and the right actions and the right timing. And for a certain kind of wealth, maybe that model is accurate enough. But the kind of wealth we are talking about, the kind that carries legacy, that builds things which outlast a single lifetime, that changes what is possible for an entire generation, that wealth is not grabbed. It is magnetized. And what creates the magnetic field is not hustle, it is formation. You have been in formation. Every year that felt like delay was formation. Every loss that felt like subtraction was formation. Every moment you held on when it would have been easier to let go was formation. And formation produces something that striving never can. It produces character. It produces the specific inner architecture that allows a person to receive something enormous and use it without being consumed by it. Here is the sixth sign. You have stopped competing with other people's timelines. Maybe it happened quietly, without you fully realizing it. But at some point, you stopped measuring yourself against what other people were building and started going inward. started asking different questions. Not when will I get there, but who am I becoming? Not why are they ahead, but what is being built in me that I cannot yet see. That shift is not resignation. It is one of the clearest signs I know that the pioneer in you has activated. Because the pioneer, and I want you to hear this about yourself, does not follow the path that already exists. The pioneer goes first, into territory where there is no map, where the trail has to be made by walking. And the people who go first always arrive after the people who followed the established road. But what they build when they arrive is something that the followers cannot replicate, because it was made from a specific kind of courage that the follower path does not require. You are a pioneer, not because it sounds good, because the evidence of your life confirms it. And there is a seventh sign, and it is perhaps the most important one. You already know that your financial breakthrough is not just about you. Somewhere in the knowing that you carry about your calling, there is an awareness that what you are building is larger than your own comfort. That the wealth coming toward you is meant to move through you to change what is possible for your family, for your community, for people you may not even know yet, but who are somehow connected to what you will create. That awareness is the cycle breaker speaking. The one who ends a generational pattern that came before. The deliverer, who does not just open a door for themselves, but holds it open for the ones coming behind. These are not titles I am giving you. They are descriptions of what the evidence of your life has already produced. The builder who creates things that outlast him. The pioneer who goes where there is no map. The cycle breaker who ends what came before. The deliverer who carries others through what they could not cross alone. This is who you are, not who you might become, who you already are. And the tree does not become visible because it finally tried hard enough. It becomes visible because it has been growing below the surface long enough that nothing can hold it underground anymore. You are at that point, not almost. There. So what do I do with this? That is the question I want to answer now. Not with a complicated system, not with a dramatic overnight change. With three things, three practices that are specifically designed for the season you are in right now. The threshold season, the season just before the visible breakthrough. The first thing I want to offer you is this. Begin to speak to yourself differently about who you are. Not in a generic, everything is fine way. In a specific, grounded, identity-anchored way. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to do something simple, without moving, without standing up, without reaching for anything. Just breathe in slowly, and as you exhale, say these words in your mind. Say them quietly, just in the private space of your own thinking. I am a builder. I do not compete with other people's timelines. What I am building will outlast me. Do not say it to convince yourself. Say it to remember yourself. Because the spoken declaration, even the internally spoken declaration, does something that passive belief cannot. It activates the part of the brain that registers identity, not just aspiration. And identity is what governs behavior, not motivation. Do this every morning, not as a ritual that takes an hour, as a 30-second act of remembering who you are before the day tries to tell you something different. The second thing I want to offer you is a simple audit, not of your finances, of your energy. Right now, still, in this moment, let your mind scan through the last 7 days. Think about the interactions, the commitments, the environments, the conversations. And notice, without judgment, which of those things left you feeling more like yourself, sharper, clearer, more connected to your sense of purpose. And which of those things left you feeling drained, contracted, smaller than when you walked in. You do not need to make any decisions right now, just notice. Because the pathway into what is coming requires you to understand where your energy is actually going, and whether what you are giving it to is building toward your calling or feeding something that is not yours to carry. The third thing I want to offer you is this question, and I want you to hold it, not answer it immediately, but carry it with you for the next few days. What would this wealth make possible not just for you, but for the people whose lives are connected to yours? Not in a vague way. Specifically, who would be free because of what you build? What door would open for someone in your family who has never had access to that door? What community would be different because you showed up in it with resources and with the specific gifts you carry? That question is not abstract. It is part of the frequency we talked about earlier. The brain that is oriented toward contribution, toward building something for others, activates a completely different set of cognitive resources than the brain oriented purely toward survival. And those resources are precisely the ones that recognize opportunity, that make aligned decisions, that sustain the long effort that generational wealth requires. Carry that question. Let it do its work. Chosen one, we have walked through 7 signs today. And I want to close with this. You waited longer than you expected, and you are still here. You felt the vision clearly and struggled to bring it into execution, and you kept trying anyway. You lost things that mattered to you, and you did not allow those losses to close your hands or your heart. You carried the doubt, the quiet, honest question of whether you truly deserve what you sense is coming, and you kept showing up in spite of it. You stopped competing with other people's timelines, not in defeat, in trust. You stopped believing the breakthrough was for you alone. You started carrying the weight of what it would mean for others. And you are still here, in this moment, which is not an accident. Each of those is not just a sign of what is coming. Each of those is the finished work of formation. The root system, fully grown, invisible to everyone around you, quietly waiting for the season to shift. The tree does not become visible by force. It becomes visible because growth, when it is real and deep and patient, eventually cannot be contained. That is you. Not a promise about a specific date or a specific number, but a truth about the kind of person you have become and the kind of wealth that finds that person. You are the builder, you are the pioneer, you are the cycle breaker, you are the deliverer. Go build, not with strain, with certainty, because what is moving toward you has already been decided.